That's exactly what someone does when they choke someone. Except to choke someone, you move that hand down about 6 inches, right? Like if there's ever a threat, if you want to threaten someone, do that to their jaw and give them the impression that you can choke them too, right? Like he grabs her jaw and he shakes it like with force, so much so that he hurts her. And I think the message is, I can do this lower on your neck and kill you. I mean, obviously he's not saying that, but she has to infer that if he's doing that here, why isn't he going to do it lower? And of course, we don't know the history. Maybe he's tried to choke her before, right? Maybe we don't know, but there could be some of that violence in their past.
The documentary American Murder, Gabby Petito, now streams on Netflix, and we are revisiting some haunting time capsules here at Hidden True Crime. At the time of this video that we are about to watch, the Moab body camera footage had just been released. We recorded this on September 16th, 2021. During this time, the world was still hoping for Gabby's safe return, while John and I sat down to react to what we saw as vital clues in her disappearance. We feel strongly that the commentary on this body camera footage while Gabby was still missing is so important to revisit, still so relevant today. If Gabby Petito taught us anything, it is that signs of domestic violence and abusive relationships are often hidden in plain sight. Criminal psychologist Dr. John Matthias, my co-host, has worked for years with victims of domestic violence, and he shares here what he recognized the very day the footage came down, while the world still hoped to bring Gabby home.
You want to place your vehicle into park and go ahead and turn it off for me? Like park? Oh, it isn't park yet. Okay, turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me, all right? What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
I'm Brian. Gabby, Brian? Okay. What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm sorry, we've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
It was a long day. We were camping yesterday, and camping got supplies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving. I'm sorry.
For a minute. So this is interesting to me right away because he starts with the I'm sorry's.
Right.
Like from the minute, from within the first 15 seconds that he starts talking, he's already apologizing, right? Which
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, go over.
She is showing real emotion. She's like really upset, and he seems controlled to me in that he's probably really angry at her or upset that he's just been pulled over, but you don't see anything. He's just like, hey, sorry. There's just like nothing.
Well, I think the sorry is his attempt to tell the officer he's not a threat. He's trying to disarm the officer and remove any sense of threat. And it could be because, as we'll talk about later, he is upset, he is angry, and he's putting up this facade that he's not. And I think the other thing that all these sorries that keep coming up over and over again, I think it's not only sending that message of not being a threat, but I think he's also partially guilty. I think it shows a guilty conscience that he knows that when they want to arrest her, and when they see her as the aggressor, that's not true. That's a fake narrative, right? That's a false narrative.
Well, let's see.
Let's keep going.
You're jumping ahead. Hold on. Now we know how you really feel.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there. Do you mind if I take your keys and just put them on your hood?
Yeah, I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you. Oh, no, you're fine.
I will say this. I do like that the first thing the police officers did was separate them. That was
right.
Good.
That was good.
That was good.
I'm going to go ahead and close your door. I'm just going to agree. SO229, I had the female that was on the passenger seat separated from the male. keys are on the hood. You want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It just some days I have really bad OCD, and
Okay.
I was just cleaning when he's painting up back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, "I'm sorry that I'm so mean."
Really quickly, she is apologizing. The first thing she says is she blames herself. I'm sorry, I have OCD, which we don't know if that's official diagnosis. It could be something he's telling her, but either way, I'm sorry, I have OCD. I was cleaning up and I was, and she was saying I was apologizing to him.
Sometimes I have OCD, and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him. I just I guess.
So she can get frustrated, but not mean towards him. So her frustration isn't even focused towards him.
My vibe is
but it's her vibe that is the problem.
you're in a bad mood. And I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I just really says ahead.
That to me sounds like someone who's used to taking a lot of criticism.
Yes.
Right. This is someone who's trying to appease someone. This is someone who's placating someone a lot. Right. Like, she's blaming herself because she's gone through this drill many times before, I think.
That's what I'm seeing. Oh, I'm sorry, I have OCD. Sometimes I can clean up. I mean, let's also talk about how important it is that her van is clean. This is her business venture. She's put everything into this van. She does videos of her van. She lives in her van. She shows how cute it is. She's decorated her van. So it's kind of a big deal to clean her van. And right, it seems like somebody to me has been through this drill over and over again. I'm so sorry. I guess I'm OCD because I want my van to be clean. I get frustrated, but I'm not mean to him, but it's my vibe.
It actually sounds to me like she's talking to him.
Right.
It almost sounds as if like this is what she says to him.
She's been conditioned to say this and to apologize.
To immediately back down and apologize and take the brunt of the blame.
Right. And I'll also say this, the first thing that came out of her mouth was, I have OCD, another foreshadowing bit. It seems like the police never forget that. I think at this moment, they chalk it up to a mental health issue.
And I take her to mean, I just took it to mean that it wasn't like the diagnosis. I took it to mean that like somebody saying, yeah, I'm a little OCD. I like the house clean, right? Like, maybe she has the diagnosis, but it seems to me like this is more of an informal statement about, I can never make him happy. The house is never clean enough. The van's right.
Right. And again, wanting her van to be clean, put this in context. She's saying I'm a little OCD because she wants her van to be clean. Again, this is her everything. She's given up her job, her life, everything for this idea of documenting her van life. This is her home.
So much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an organic juice bar, but I just hit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That's
okay.
That's my
That's
job.
cool.
And I just hit my job to travel across the country, and I'm trying to start a blog. And have a blog stuff. So I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed, and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been like I don't know. He's like down there. I don't know.
She's like a downer. Doesn't believe in her.
Right. So this is, I think, this is either the most pivotal moment or one of the most pivotal moments in the body cam footage. You'll play it again.
Okay.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country, and I'm trying to start a blog. And have a blog stuff. So I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed, and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been like I don't know. He's like down there. I don't know. We've just been fighting all morning, and
also, this working on her blog website thing is also, again, a really big deal. Put this in context. This is, again, what she's trying so hard to do. And he's been clearly negative of this attempt of hers for a while. It seems like, this is a regular thing. He doesn't believe in me. So this is definitely, again, something I think is continuing to happen to her over and over again. He doesn't believe in her.
Well, and it raises the question about, why is he with her? If he's not going to support her, or if he's not going to be constructive, or if he doesn't see her vision, right? Like, why is he traveling with her if he's going to be critical and tell her it's not going to work, right? She's putting everything on the line for this.
Right.
And it's her vision, it's her dream. And I think she wants to include him because she's engaged to him and she sees him as a vital part of her life, right? Like she's bringing him along for this ride because she loves him or wants to love him. And so, but she's got this guy on who, you know, apparently from the start doesn't believe in her.
Also, one thing she didn't say he didn't want to come or he doesn't want to be doing this with me. It's just, he doesn't believe in me. And
he doesn't believe I can do any of this.
I can do this. And why wouldn't he believe in her? Do you think he even wants her to succeed?
That's a tricky question. I think that the video blog could be something of a threat to him. I think that he might see it as a potential threat if it gets a lot of attention, and perhaps there's some suitors out there that might be interested in her that are going to be less conflictual, or, you know, they're going to be more suitable to her. Right. So they could be threats. I think having a successful video blog is a real threat to him. And I think there could be some element of sabotage.
Yeah.
And he would let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't you let you in the car?
He wouldn't let me in the car before too. Let's talk about that. Again, everyone remember, the car is her home.
Right.
That she decorated, that's in her name, that she's traveling with. This isn't just being locked out of his car. This is her life, her van, her home. She is locked out of her home.
he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been like I don't know, he's like down there. I don't know, we've just been fighting all morning and he would let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't you let you in the car? Because of your OCD?
Told me I needed to calm down. Yeah. But I'm perfectly calm all the time. And he really stresses me out. And
He's telling me to calm down, which if you ever told me to calm down, I'd probably not be very
right. I'd be sleeping at the Motel 6 tonight if I told her to calm down. I mean, it's disrespectful. You know, he's trying to tell her how she should feel. He's trying to dictate her emotions and her feelings, right? It's controlling.
It's controlling. He's trying to control her. And again, this all started because she was blogging and she might have been cleaning the van. I still haven't heard of any big thing. And she's apologizing still. What did she just say here?
He really stresses me out. And
he really stresses me out.
Right, exactly. So this isn't about her being the aggressor necessarily. This is about the context of this is that she was locked out of her home. She's living with someone during this period who happens to be her fiance, who's probably hypercritical of her blog, probably lets her know she's not doing anything right. And of course she's stressed. That's not about OCD. That's about their relationship and the context of their relationship, right? And I think that's where the officers really kind of missed the boat here, is that there's different types of domestic violence. And one of those types is called resistive violence or reactive violence. And that is domestic violence where the victim will lash out at the offender oftentimes because it's self-protective and because it's the dance that they're used to, right? Like she knows that when he's critical, she knows what's coming, right? She knows what she's going to be subjected to. And there could be, for all we know, there could be some history of physical violence. Yeah. We don't know for sure. Yeah. But if that's the case, then it's much more likely that a victim is going to resort to resistive violence because it's a way of protecting themselves. And it's also a way of engaging with the offender so that the violence is over quickly, right? Like she lashes out, the offender hits back or does whatever, the dance is over, rather than having this prolonged, drawn out fight where the victim sometimes knows that they're going to get really hurt. This is in a way, it's preemptive. So resistive violence is a way for the victim to actually get it over quicker. Since the victim often knows what's about to happen, they will take action so that the fight only lasts 5 minutes rather than 30. And the risk actually, in very serious domestic violence cases, by victims doing that, they're lessening their risk of being killed.
Wow. There's a quote that I'm paraphrasing, but it says an abuser will often provoke your anger and then use it to prove their point. Is that a little bit like this? You know, he's provoking you are this, you're OCD, you're so bad at blogging. I mean, I'm making up what, you know.
Well, I think in those cases, it's a question of blame. If the offender is provoking the victim's anger, then they can blame them. Say, see, look, you pushed my
You're
buttons.
crazy, which he'll say later.
Say, yeah, you're crazy. So I think that's kind of a case of, that's sort of a case of being able to turn the tables and blame the victim. But what I'm talking about is actually more of a kind of a preemptive situation where the victim is actually considering their survival.
Got it. Right. Okay.
Because there's some type of domestic violence abusers that resort to what's called pathological violence. So there's three types of domestic violence essentially. There's coercive control offenders. There's reactive violence. So there's coercive violence, reactive violence, and pathological violence. And the coercive offenders are, I would imagine, more like Brian here.
Okay.
They're the guy. They isolate their victims. They're possessive. They're controlling. There's some research on domestic violence by Gottman and Jacobson, and they classify offenders as either pit bulls or cobras. And coercive offenders are like pit bulls. They keep the violence at home. They keep it confined to usually their intimate relationship, their wife, their spouse, a partner, whatever. They're a lot like this guy, I think. Whereas pathological violence and pathological offenders are more like cobras in the sense that they're indiscriminately violent. These are more like your psychopaths. Okay. These are guys that will go into a bar and pick a fight just to pick a fight because they're violent everywhere. So,
and to any pit bull owners, John did not write this research project.
No, right. Yeah. I'm not picking on pit bulls. I'm just saying that the category here, the basic idea of Gottman and Jacobson is that a pit bull abuser is like a pit bull. They'll latch on, right, and they won't let go, and they're extremely possessive and coercive, and so reactive violence fits this equation in the sense, or resistive violence fits this equation in the sense that it's violence from the victim responding to some history of a certain type of coercion and a certain type of control, right? Like it's the victim's way of maintaining the relationship and getting the arguments and or physical violence, if it's going to occur, over faster.
This is a rough morning.
Well,
this is a rough morning. Remember that.
Right.
Why don't we do this? Why don't I sit you down in the back seat of my car? You're not in any trouble, okay? I'm not going to be putting handcuffs on you. You obviously don't have any weapons. I'm going to get you into the air conditioning, let you take a breath, relax a little bit, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
All right. Like I said, you're not in any trouble. So just go ahead and take a seat.
Change the sound here because he comes up. Let's go and hear the lower voice. But I just switch the sound. Try to get rid of the lower.
My fiance.
What's that?
Talk to Gabby already.
Did you talk to my fiance? Did you talk to Gabby already? What do you want to say about that?
Yeah, that's, to me, this opening gambit, if we call it that, is really peculiar because he's not worried about his story or how he's being perceived, right? His first question is, did you talk to her? He's basically saying, what did she tell you about me?
He's trying to assess.
He's trying to assess. I think he's afraid. I think he's worried that Gabby may have said, you know what, this guy's violent. He beats me up, whatever. He beats the hell out of me. You know, I think he's really worried that if Gabby tells the truth, if there is domestic violence here and there is some history of violence and she discloses that, then that's going to change their perception entirely. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think he's trying to take control of the narrative right away. And he's trying to assess, what do they know about our relationship? What has she told them? Has she told them that I've hit her before?
Right. He's panicked that they separated them.
He's worried.
Right,
yeah, he's worried.
Because he's controlling. He's controlling. And the first thing the police officers did, which I commend them for, was separate them. And he's like, did you talk to her? He wants to know if the person talked. And he doesn't know what in the world she's said. Also, I want to throw this out. If he really, really was worried about her and cared about her, he'd be like, is she okay?
Right, exactly.
He never once.
He never once. Yeah, it's an extraordinary way to open this because he wants to know what she said about him, essentially.
Right.
He doesn't want to know how she's doing.
He wants to know what she said.
He doesn't want to know if she's
feeling better.
Right. If she's feeling better, if she's settled down, if she is going to be okay, or if the situation is going to be okay. If, you know, he just wants to know, what did she say about me?
Yeah, I just spoke to her. So, you want to do me a favor? Let's go ahead and get you to step out of the vehicle. Alrighty? Come on over here. You're not in any trouble right now. So, tell me what's going on.
She just gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her. So, like, I lock the car and I walk.
So, she gets worked up sometimes, and I try to distance myself from her.
And so I locked the car. Is that what he just said to you? So I locked the car.
But let's start with that. Okay. So that's the theme here. Like he starts off by throwing her under the bus, right? Saying that she's reactive and emotional and she gets worked up.
Right. She apologized. Yeah.
And then I have to distance myself from her. The distancing myself from her, he's going to say a few times, by the way. And the reason I think that's really interesting here is because that's what he does this whole time in the interview. He distances himself from her the whole time, and he never tries to repair that. You know, the research by Gottman I talk about quite often shows that healthy couples are able to turn to each other, right? They lean into each other for emotional support. And his metaphor throughout this whole interview is distance, mm-hmm. right? And he does it the whole time. He actually gets closer to the police officers than he does to her. Like, they do tell him he can't talk to her. So in fairness, it's possible that he may have wanted to talk to her, but I think he probably wanted to talk to her more out of control rather than concern or caring, right? Yeah. So he's setting the stage here. Like, he's telling the officers, and I don't expect the officers to hear this because there's a lot going on, but he's essentially telling them, I distance myself from her. That's what he does all the time.
Yes.
And that's what he does in this interview. He doesn't ever once try to lessen or reduce that distance.
Away from her. Whatever.
I'm going to rewind it just a bit so we can hear it.
Yeah.
She just gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her. So, like, I lock the car and I walk away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to set up like her own little website blog and everything. So
he confirms that's what it's about. This morning she was trying to set up one of her little blogs. Like,
also, just let's pick up on the word "little." Like, that's condescending. You know, that's condescending. He's referring to her work as little, as in insignificant.
Right.
She gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her. So, like, I lock the car and I walk away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to start up like her own little website blog and everything. So
Her own little website blog and everything.
Right. Like he doesn't know it, but what he's saying is it's a joke. Like it's insignificant. Her own this little project of hers that'll pass.
That I've ventured with her on for over a month. So is he just a passenger in this?
In some of the videos of some of the blog videos that we've looked at, he often comes across as secondary. He's in the background often, right? He's not really in front of the camera that much.
She tries to include him.
She tries to include. Many times he seems like a bit player. And I think that's some of her frustration too, right? Like she's saying to him, if you're going to marry me and we're in this together, then show me.
And clearly they chose to do this. He's committed to her months already, right?
Yeah, I think they've been out for a few months by now, right?
Right. Like if you really don't think it's a big deal, go get a job then. But
and also it's super condescending to refer to it as a little,
right?
Her little project. No, this is her life.
And it's his life too, though. That's what I'm trying to say. It's both of their lives.
Right, it should be, but he doesn't see it that way.
I give her time. We really had a nice morning with her, and if anything.
Also, he just says here, we really had a nice morning. When she's now said a couple of times, we've been fighting all morning, and it's been a really rough morning. And he's saying, we really had a nice morning.
Right, so he's trying to sugarcoat it.
But she just worked up because we were trying to get going and get our day going because we want to go like arches before the something like that. Okay.
So she got worked up when we were trying to get her day going, but he doesn't really give us specifics. How did she get worked up?
Well,
you're not telling us.
He tells us that they had a fight over the blog, it sounds like. I mean, but
he gives no details.
He'll change that story.
You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
He doesn't bring up the scratches either.
She had his cell phone in her hand. That's why I was pushing her away.
So she had a cell phone in her hand, and that's why I'm pushing her away. It doesn't make any sense to me. So was he scared of his cell phone? Was he scared she was going to call someone? Was he scared that she was going to throw it at him? Was he scared that she was going to take the phone?
She wanted I like the keys so I could walk away.
And then did you say he got the keys? We got the keys. He took her keys. That's threatening too. Like I'm gonna go.
I said, let's just take a breather and let's not, go anywhere. Let's just calm down for a minute because she was getting worked up. And then she had her phone and was trying to get the keys. So that way I was just trying to.
So he took the keys and he took
the keys and said, let's take a breather. So again, he's taking control. He's dictating the terms of the relationship. He's telling her how she should react. He's telling her how she should feel. Right.
But he also took her keys. Like that's a threat. She is in a foreign place, not foreign as in overseas, but they don't know this place. All of her belongings and everything that, she's working on is this van.
Right.
So taking the keys isn't just taking the keys. It's it
suggests that he could abandon her at any time, that he has control. He has control of her van. He has control of her home, which is her van, and he has control of her life. If he takes the keys, he's sending the message and he can take them whenever he wants.
And it sounds like he might have wanted the phone too. And that maybe he was trying to get it.
Yeah, it's not clear why.
Right. Because he also, again, he doesn't know what Gabby has told the police. So he's, I think, assuming that maybe she told them that maybe he was pushing her or something, because he's kind of saying, this is all that happened. He's kind of trying to make it sound sugarcoat, as you would say, make the situation sound better than it was. And the police are going to help him here by pointing out his scratches.
I know I shouldn't push, but I was just trying to push her away to go, let's just take a minute.
And he always says that he pushes her. He pushes her.
Step back and breathe, and you see if she got me with the phone. Can I see your hand?
Did she say she got me with the phone, right? Got me with the phone.
Oh, you got a mark right here. Oh, that's from a wire. That's from a wire? Yeah. You want to tell me about hitting that curb?
Hitting the curb was her grabbing the wheel.
She grabbed the wheel?
Yeah. She said, I can't believe we're getting pulled over, and then she grabbed the wheel.
So
also, let's talk about his demeanor really quickly. His voice is monotone. He's really flat, right? He's what I would say, the term I would use to describe him, he's over-controlled. Like he's clearly trying to suppress whatever anger or whatever emotions he's feeling. he reminds me a lot of some inmates that, you know, I've seen or worked with over the years who exhibit what I call over-controlled hostility. That I think beneath this demeanor, you know, and his voice drives me crazy because it's just so monotone and so like there's kind of a rapidity to his speech. It's a little rapid, but it's also really, really flat. And that's somebody who's struggles with emotional self-regulation, I think. Like he's not good with his emotions, particularly anger, I think. And he's just very detached. He's just very unemotional.
What about the speed? Did you take over the? The pedal on you?
If I was going fast, I'm sorry. No, it's probably just the moment of like, I'm still shaking now. The adrenaline, seeing the lights flashing up, and then her gripping the wheel.
So can we talk about that too? Why were you speeding? Let's talk about how fast he was speeding. It was 15 miles per hour and he was going over 40.
He was going 48, I think.
Yeah, 42, 45, 48. But he just said, I saw the lights and adrenaline kicked in, so I was speeding. So in other words, that's like considered like a high speed chase. All of a sudden he's like speeding away from police.
I mean, when he said that, my first thought was, if I see the lights in my rearview mirror, I'm going to brake. Like my first impulse is the adrenaline will kick in probably, but my first impulse isn't to try to run from the police. So I don't know how the police officer agrees with him on that. Like, I think a normal response would be fear. And he doesn't seem to have that. He says his adrenaline kicked in, but his first response is, I'm going to run. Right. And that's apparently when she like punched him on the arm. Like, what are you doing? You're accelerating.
Right. He claims that she pulled the steering wheel. She says she did not do that.
Right.
She punched him in the arm. And again, think about that. You've had this awful morning. You've had something that was intense enough that a witness called police, and then police are following you and you're speeding.
Well, you seem to accelerate. Like she never drives this van. So
he's in control.
So right. So she must have been a little taken aback when he started to accelerate.
Right. I'm sure she was freaking out. Stop.
I would be. I'd be like,
yeah.
So are we going to go on a high speed chase through Arches National Park where it's 15 miles an hour?
Yeah. Right.
So if I sped up, I'm sorry about that. Or if I was speeding beforehand, I'm sorry about that.
If I sped up, I'm sorry about that. Oh, and I'll throw in if I was speeding before, I'm also sorry about that, because really I've just been speeding for quite a long time, but no one cares.
Yeah, it's quite a bit to catch up to you. So,
yeah, I'm sorry about that. We're just going into.
How many times is he going to say I'm sorry? So what? He's manipulating here. He's trying to get the officers to like him, and he's showing them that he's not a threat. This is definitely manipulation. But I think there might be some guilt too, right? Like he knows that the narrative they're about to accept or portray to him, which is that he's the victim, he probably knows that narrative is false.
To the park again to get water because we have a 6-gallon water container to fill up, so we're just getting water for the hike.
Getting water for the hike.
And I was trying to keep everything calm and quiet because there's plans still to go for a hike. It's good. So I'm really sorry about that.
I'm really sorry about that.
He's sorry so many times.
Just take a seat right over here on the floor for me.
And if I was speeding, I'm sorry.
You don't have anything in my pocket or anything like that?
Yeah. Nope.
Just the wallet? All right. And then, do you mind lifting your shirt so I can check your waistband? I got turn around for me real quick. Okay. I just want to make sure. That's all, man. Go ahead, do me a favor, take a seat. All right.
But it's working, by the way. Like he is.
Oh, do you have your ID on you?
He's over right there. It's working. The perpetual SARS is working.
All right, you're fine. What's your first name?
Brian.
Brian. Is that right spelling?
B-R-I-N. Yeah, and L-A-U-N.
Forward. Sorry. Nothing much here. Forward.
This is the shades to the ball. I'm not joking. I'll give you some shit. Sound good?
They're laughing together now.
All right, just hang tight for me. SO229. I need a 29 name and date of birth. First name Brian, layman spellings, last name Ron.
To be honest, I don't think
Also, I do think we might have skipped over one thing where the police officer called her hysterical. They said, did you get much from her? And he said, I don't know, she was hysterical. We might have just skipped over that.
He said she was hyperventilating.
Oh, hyperventilating.
Yeah.
That made me really angry the first time we watched it, because again, once she came, I mean, she was crying. She wasn't hyperventilating. She was upset. She was crying, and she was going through something traumatic, including a high-speed chase, throwing that at the end. So if we missed that, I wanted to bring that up. I feel like the police officers here have made up their mind already about her as over emotional with having mental illness, because she's mentioned OCD and she was hyperventilating.
Bravo, Romeo, India, Alpha, November. And then what? His reaction was to do what? It's going to be out of Florida. He just grabbed you? Did he hit you? No, I mean, it's okay.
So did she just say he just grabbed me, but he wants to know if he hit her?
I couldn't hear that part.
Gonna be out of Florida. He just grabbed you.
He just grabbed you, so he grabbed me. So we know.
Did he hit you? No, I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him. I understand if he hit you, but we want to know if he actually hit you. Because where did he hit you?
Did she just say so now he's saying, where did he hit you?
Don't worry. Be honest.
This part is so important. He grabbed her face.
Did you slap your face or what? Yeah.
By the way, right there, I think she says, and it really hurt. So she tells him twice, he grabbed my face, and then the police officer says, but did he slap you or did he hit you? And so she tells him again, well, he didn't hit me, but he grabbed my face like this, and it really hurt. And I'm pretty sure I listened to this over and over, but at the end when she does this thing with her cheek, I think she says it hurt. And this, I know that you're going to say a lot about this, but I just want to play it one more time because nobody mentions this. And the police officers, it makes me angry, don't ever talk to her about it. That's not saying stand back.
Did he hit you? No, I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him. I understand if he hit you, but we want to know if he actually hit you. Because, where did he hit you? Don't worry. Be honest.
Grab my face like this.
Did you slap your face or what? Yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
I think it's upsetting because the officer is looking for something like hitting or punching. Like, he's not taking seriously this idea that you could harm someone by taking your hand and putting it on their jaw.
Like, you can't even do it to me as an example, and I want you to. Like, that's
right.
like really intense.
But when I first saw her do that, though, the first thing that occurred to me is that's exactly what someone does when they choke someone. Except to choke someone, you move that hand down about 6 inches, right? Like, if there's ever a threat, if you want to threaten someone, do that to their jaw and give them the impression that you can choke them too, right? Like, he grabs her jaw and he shakes it like with force, so much so that he hurts her. And I think the message is, I can do this lower on your neck and kill you. I mean, obviously he's not saying that, but she has to infer that if he's doing that here, why isn't he going to do it lower? And of course, we don't know the history. Maybe he's tried to choke her before, right? Maybe we don't know, but there could be some of that violence in their past.
And at the very least, this is not pushing her to get away. This is a power play. This is saying I'm in charge and I'm in control. Like, That's not pushing someone to say, let's create distance. That's threatening
Right.
somebody.
Yeah, that's letting someone know that you're in charge.
I'm going to just go back and play from there. And I'll see it one more time.
You slap your face or what? Yeah. Go ahead. Okay. So has he been drinking?
No, you don't drink.
Okay. What was up with this driving? This officer said he hit a curb.
I
While you're driving?
well, he was there.
While he was driving, you were hitting him?
But I'm not a lot.
Again, they were speeding. He was like about to take off as
I was like, come on, I was trying to do something.
Did you already tell him all this? I didn't get that far into it. She was hyperventilating.
She's saying that they don't drink, but at the point when you lit them up,
You don't drink or anything. I was yelling at him, and then when you turned your lights on, I like kind of punched her arm, like just
she's saying was like hit the curb. You said it was Gabby?
right. So she had nothing else to be able to do. The police were now chasing him. He was taking off, and she was like, freaking stop. And also for that, there you go. There's where he said it. She was hyperventilating. She wasn't hyperventilating.
Well, he also said at some point that she was hyperventilating the whole time. I
Yeah.
think he says that later on.
She's actually calming down pretty quickly.
She's not hyperventilating at all right here.
Meditation stuff, but you tend to have a lot of anxiety and stress.
I have a lot of anxiety.
And what's his name?
OCD.
Is it Brian? Is he usually pretty patient with you?
Yeah, but it just makes me upset. I know that he definitely gets frustrated with me a lot.
So by the way, she just contradicted herself. He says, is he really patient with you? Like he's already on Brian's side. And she goes, yeah, but actually, no, he gets frustrated with me a lot. So no,
Right. So no, he's not.
he's not.
My anxiety and bringing it down, but my ex-wife, I'm just sharing it. I know it's a little personal, but help you understand. We would feed off each other's anxiety and spiral. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter how much I loved her. It may be bad for your soul. Just saying. I'm not telling you what to do with your life, but if you know you have anxiety, look at
This, by the way, is there's some moments here where I refer to the police as life coaches. So this is when the police life coaches come into play. So we'll see. I get why they're doing it, by the way. They're doing it because they're trying to be more relatable. They're trying to develop rapport, right? But so it's fine. I think it's fine, but it's interesting that there's a lot of kind of life coaching moments throughout this footage.
look at the situations you can get in. You know what I mean? And we're not here to be mean to you or anything. Well, you know, there's a first time, and then it usually. We'll go see what Brian's saying, but I think you've heard everything now from.
Quick question. You said you were hitting him in the arm?
Also, again, no questions about the squeezing of her face. No questions about.
Right.
She said at one point that there was a hitting. She kind of switched. Well, it wasn't like a hit, hitting me, but earlier they said.
They're already convinced that she's the aggressor. They've already made up their mind that she initiated it. So even though he was grabbing her jaw and shaking it and pulling hard on it, they don't see that as relevant.
And I think it was the moment she stepped out and said OCD, because we've now had so many comments about she was hyperventilating, and then he came over and the first thing he said is, so you have anxiety. You have a lot of anxiety. And then he brings up this relatable moment of his ex-wife. They fed off each other's anxieties. They're now divorced, ex-wife. They've already decided this is a mental health crisis, not an assault or an abusive situation.
And again, they never consider the fact that maybe her violence is reactive, that she's reacting to the fact that she had no access to her home, that he was probably being critical of her blog all morning, letting her know she wasn't going to make it work. It wasn't going to be successful. I mean, I don't know that for sure. I'm inferring that, but it's not hard to imagine that he was belittling her in some capacity before all of this happened.
Well, I mean, for this too, and speculation, but I've seen their YouTube videos. Again, this van was decorated. She spent time, money, TLC, gave up her work for this as a nutritionist. She tells the police officer. And so I don't know if it would be OCD to want to keep the van clean. So she's cleaning it. And if he is being disrespectful in that sense, I would be really upset. This is not just like keeping a dirty car. This is, again, her heart and soul that she's working really hard. And if he, was being disrespectful and just getting in it with his muddy shoes, just, I don't know if that happened again like you, but I'm just trying to, again, give context of what this is.
He talks about the muddy shoes later.
Okay, I thought I had heard something about that.
No, that's coming up.
Did you grab the steering wheel?
No, I didn't.
You did not touch
I
the steering
didn't
wheel?
touch the steering wheel, but only for like a second, because I just saw the lights come on, and it was more just like, you're an idiot,
But did you grab the steering wheel and like swerve or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't the steering wheel at all.
So contradiction.
I'm going to go ahead and close this door again. Do you have enough air back here, or do you want me to kick it up some more?
Do you have any water?
I will see if I can find some.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
She's doing a great job calming down now too.
You wouldn't happen to have any water, would you? Can I get a bottle?
Did you already give a statement to this officer?
I've got this gentleman here.
Yeah. This gentleman noticed that you had some marks on your neck. Yeah. And she's got some marks on her too. We're just trying to figure out what all happened. And I know you probably already told your story. This officer is probably going to be the one handling the whole case. You want to listen to what he has to say, and then you tell him what happened. So if you don't mind.
Start at the beginning for me.
Start at the beginning. Well, I don't want to go too far back, but we've been in BLM land for the past week or so, traveling around, and the flies here are pretty intense. So the
What if the flies twice now?
flies have definitely been getting to her, and then my feet are dirty and everything. So I think that our little squabble started because we were hanging out at the coffee shop, and when we got back to the van, there was some dirt and stuff in the van, and I moved our food around. It was a little disorganized, so she gets a little.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Do you need any water?
That's okay.
It's hot out
I
here.
was we were going to get water because we ran out, but it's okay. That was right. I don't like plastic bottles. Okay. Thank you. But we just had a little disagreement there. Disagreement was just that she was getting a little worked up, and I was saying, "No, it's okay." Thank you.
Also, he's always blaming her. Little disagreement. She was getting worked up. He never, ever takes responsibility for anything.
Right.
We had a little disagreement. Look at his hands too. He's just like, look at me. I'm just sitting here smiling with my hands crossed. He's always blaming her. Oh, we just had a little disagreement and she got worked up. It's feeding into this mental health crisis.
Yeah, and the hands are similar to the sorries.
Mm-hmm,
that
right.
he's trying to send the message that he's not a threat.
Go ahead, sorry.
That he's not a threat and he's a calm guy.
Right.
It's cool. That's good.
So it was just more disagreement, and I just wanted to.
What was the disagreement about?
It was. I wouldn't even call it disagreement. It was just that I'm dirty and I can't change being dirty. Like I got dirty feet. I got sand on my flip-flops and stuff like that.
No, you could actually wipe your feet off, just saying.
It was that we were at the coffee shop for so long because we were there from 9 to 3. So there's a few little things, little relationships. I don't know if you're in a relationship, but I'm sure you
I've been married for over 5 years now. So.
There's a lot of little things.
Yeah, I can go.
And we
I'll pause it. So that, if little things are getting him this irritated, the big things are going to be a disaster.
Right.
Right.
Well,
He's telling you that they fight over everything.
yeah,
Essentially.
Someone might say to you, well, what do you expect when they're on a road trip for months in the small quarters? So I'm saying this because I've seen this on comments. But your point is that's not what this is about. This is about dirty feet, flies, a little blog.
Right. Who's OCD?
Yeah.
Who's OCD? Is it, she's looking better. Like he's picking up on the little things.
I get it.
We weren't physical before the point where I said, all right,
We weren't physical before the point. Also, he's talking about being physical. And he never says,
Right.
he he still doesn't know what she said. And
he says
he says we. He's always blaming her. She gets worked up. But right here he says we didn't get physical until.
Right.
Let's just take a breather and like walk away for a minute. I'll lock the van up and I'll go for a walk this way, and you can go walk that way in the block.
By the way, I don't think that's why he took the keys. He wanted to be in control.
Yeah.
And also, you just don't lock someone out of their house. But if you want to calm someone down, don't take the keys to their house.
You know, there's that moon, what is it called, moon flower? Right. You know, nice areas. You can go either way. It's all shaded. So let's go for a little walk and breathe and come back. Because you know, we're happy with it. I'm not upset with her. She got worked up and she had a phone in her hand and the keys and everything. And she wanted, I met her keys, like her rings, rings.
He's also very much playing on the stereotype that women are hysterical and women get worked up, right, and women aren't trustworthy. He's definitely bringing in some sexist stuff here, right? He's going to try to win the police over with that argument too.
Not going to. He has
won them over, right?
And I mean, they're going with it. Yeah, I've been married 5 years. Yeah, my ex-wife and her anxiety. I mean, this.
Right. They could be at a bar, you know, drinking a few beers at this point.
I wouldn't be surprised if they were a few hours later.
I was holding on to the keys because I didn't want to go anywhere. And
I took her keys because I didn't want her to go anywhere. This is interesting.
My big fear is, I don't have my phone. I don't have a phone. So
you just said he didn't have a phone, by the way. At the end, she says, "Don't make sure he doesn't forget his phone charger." So that's a.
Wait, go back to that.
Okay. At the very end of this, because it is getting late. Who knows if we'll get there or not? But he does. Okay.
I met her keys, like her rings, rings, the phone. And I was holding on to the keys because I didn't want to go anywhere. And my big fear is.
I didn't want to go anywhere, and my big fear is we're going to hear it slowly but surely.
I don't have my phone. I don't have a phone. So she goes off without me. All right.
So his big fear is he doesn't have a phone, which is a lie, because she just made so much. You know, she made it very clear that he just cannot forget his phone charger. She was taking care of him at the end when they were going separate ways. Make sure he brings his phone charger. And he says, my biggest fear is that I don't have a phone and she'll take off and leave me.
Play that again.
This is where he says he's afraid that she'll leave him without a phone, stranded.
Keys and everything. She wanted, I met her keys, like her rings, rings, the phone. And I was holding on to the keys because I didn't want to go anywhere. And my big fear is, I don't have my phone. I don't have a phone. So she goes off without me. All right. I'm on my own. So I was saying, let's just go for a walk, and she was trying to get the keys for me, so I just go, just wait back up, and that's when she hit me, and I didn't get, I don't want to push you, but I didn't get.
This is important for two reasons. He says he doesn't have a phone.
All right. I'm on my own.
I'm on my own. If she leaves and takes off, I'm on my own. And I want to say two things while I rewind and listen to this again. At the end, she, as they're being separated in this, when they say, is there anything you want to tell him? She goes, will you please make sure he doesn't forget a phone charger? Like, she's taking care of him, you know, and he's this panic about, he said, he's claiming he doesn't have a phone. She's like making sure he has a phone. And then he says, I'm afraid she's going to take off. Also at the end of this, we'll hear her get in her own van, freaked out because she doesn't drive it. And she's praying that where they're sending her isn't too far away because she doesn't think she can make it alone. As in, there's no threat that she's going to leave in the van because she doesn't even want to drive to the place she's staying alone. She says, I don't drive this van. So
I don't have my phone. I don't have a phone. So she goes off without me. All right. I'm on my own. So I was saying, let's just go for a walk, and she was trying to get the keys for me, so I just go, just wait back up, and that's when she hit me, and I didn't get, I don't want to push you, but I didn't give it,
I think this is a really pivotal moment because we see how deep his fears of abandonment are here, and we see how insecure he is. That in some ways he's showing us what he's really most concerned about here, which is the fact that she may leave. She may abandon him. She may leave him stranded alone, which ironically may be the very thing that he did to her, right? And so I think one of the reasons this case appeals or this situation appeals to so many people is because there's a real primal fear here that human beings, as infants, as babies, infants, toddlers, we need caregivers to survive. That if we're abandoned as children, especially young children, we die. And so there's a tremendously primal fear going on here, I think, in this particular case, that's resonating with people. And that fear is about abandonment. And we see that theme constantly here, but he is saying it and he's showing his insecurity. And I think part of that is he's afraid that if her blog becomes big, that he may become secondary or he may become less important, that she may abandon him for someone else. So I think the real threat he's perceiving is that not only will she be successful potentially, but she may abandon him, she may leave him. And that rejection, that abandonment is really, I think, the impetus behind a lot of his fears and a lot of what's going on here. And, the huge irony is that it's quite possible that that's precisely what he did to her. We don't know how. We don't know the specifics. Maybe there was an accident when they were hiking or something of that nature. But I think it seems really possible that he just left her, right? And just leaving someone, I picture like Yellowstone, leaving someone in the middle of the wilderness amongst all these apex predators. It is a real deep fear for human beings. And so I think for me at least, I think this situation really kind of sparks that primal fear about abandonment and about being left in the middle of nowhere to survive with no protections, right? And I think that sparks a certain amount of outrage. And I think he's expressing his fear of abandonment, but he turns the tables on her at some point, I think. And so I think that's really what this is about. So his not believing in her is in some ways, I think, a way to sabotage her success. Because if she's not successful, then he won't be threatened. If she's successful, then perhaps the chances of abandonment are greater. So him not participating in a lot of the videos, or him kind of being secondary or getting the van dirty, these are all kind of passive aggressive ways of undermining her work, right? These are passive aggressive ways of negating the importance of what she's trying to do. And I think she's telling you right here, or he's telling you right here, that this fear of abandonment is perhaps the most important thing, the issue that's driving almost all of this. And even the domestic violence, that domestic abusers are greatly concerned about being abandoned. And that's why they isolate their victims. And that's why they control them financially. Right. That it's all about not leaving them, not rejecting them, not abandoning them. And that goes back to that really primal instinct that human beings have about being protected and being safe and secure and having caregivers that love us so that they won't leave us to die. So I think there's something here, not only is he telling us something important about himself, but I think there's something here that's really, really sparking a lot of interest and perhaps fear at some deep level about abandonment issues.
Thank you. I agree. Again, the two things she says, his phone, she says, make sure he gets his phone charger. And the second thing, at the very end of this video, which we're not going to get to because this has taken so long, she's afraid to even get behind the wheel and drive away alone. I mean, so his fears are kind of not valid. It doesn't make sense logically here, but it's got to be more emotional.
He's actually projecting.
Yeah.
That she's not the one who's going to abandon him. He's going to abandon her. And I think, and that's what happens. At the very least, we'd have to say, even if there was some type of accident and he went back to Florida, he abandoned her. If she's hurt somewhere in a canyon, he can get help. He doesn't have to just leave her. So however you look at this, it's about abandonment. And nowhere does she suggest that she's going to abandon him. She's the one being locked out. She's the one not driving the van, right? He's projecting all of those fears of abandonment onto her. And he's thinking that she's the one that's going to abandon him, when in fact, it turns out to be exactly the opposite.
Thank you, babe. It is late here. It's kind of funny that we actually even thought we were going to get through this whole video. We'll leave it here, and we'll try to do more of the video another time, but we'll get this first part is very important. And I think that we covered a lot of it, and what this all comes down to, right? And he tells us he's so not vulnerable. He's so not emotional. And then he says, I have this fear.
Right. So if you take those two elements, if you take the fact that Gabby says, he doesn't believe I can do any of this. She doesn't say he doesn't believe I can do this. She says he doesn't believe I can do any of this, meaning that he's criticizing everything she's doing. And then if you take that and you add in this fear of abandonment, I think you've got this really hypercritical attitude towards her project, and he's not supportive at all. And then you have this fear of abandonment. I think those are two key pillars here that really tell us what's going on, and that really potentially forecast her demise if that's what happens here. So, and I don't fault the police for their inability to see this. This is obviously very subtle, and this would take a lot of special training, I think, to be able to pick up on these types of cues. But I do think that the police perhaps could have recognized the fact that this was more reactive violence on her behalf rather than her being the aggressor and her causing the harm, right? Like, I think maybe they intuited that at the end because they didn't charge anyone and they let her go. They probably sensed that. But this is domestic violence. This is, I said this a little bit on an interview I did about this case earlier, that this is an age-old story. This is something that goes back, these abandonment issues and controlling other human beings. Of course, the classic story of domestic violence is Othello. And Othello is about possession, and it's about control, and it's about creating this fantasy based on a handkerchief that someone's cheating on you. And I think this guy, Brian, is clearly someone who has this fantasy that she's going to leave him. And that fantasy gets amplified by the fact that she's trying to start this blog that could have wide appeal and could really threaten his prominence in her life. That if she becomes this internet sensation, then he won't be as prominent. He won't be the star in her life, right? And I think perhaps success threatens him too, not just the fact that there could be other people interested in her, but her very success means she would be more independent. Right. And I think he probably wants her to be dependent on him. And that's another function of domestic violence.
She was even living with his family before this. Yeah,
so she was extremely dependent on him. And so this is really an old story, unfortunately. And it's a story of how do two human beings find intimacy in a healthy manner. And sometimes that's difficult, So I would say that I'd make a little pitch here for domestic violence and just say that if anyone is in a relationship like this or seeing something like this or experiencing something like this, to get help and to find your local women's shelter and to develop a safety plan to be able to get out. I would encourage people, if they have no other resources or don't know where to turn, to call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number, by the way, I'll give you that number. That number is 1-800-799-7233. So, domestic violence is a very common occurrence, unfortunately. And there's a lot of people that ignore these types of signs, and they don't get out, and it's unfortunate.
Thank you, Dr. John. We're still going.
Oh,
But get that head scratched. We'll post this tomorrow morning. It's late here. It is the morning here, or after we sleep, and we'll see if we can bring you the rest of it another night. Good night.
good night.
Or good morning.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.